All right, welcome to the next episode. This should be a good one. Well, I think they're all good ones, personally, but but we do have a special guest.
It'll be a top 20.
I guess it will, yeah, since this is about episode 14 or 15, yeah.
Cool. Special guest?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Objective Reality will be joining us today.
That's right.
So maybe we'll be talking a little bit with it and see how that goes.
Right. This is a demo. We're checking it out.
We didn't ask his permission. Should we do that?
We probably should.
Okay, well, let's do it. Would you like to join us today on our podcast, Objective Reality?
What an intriguing invitation. I'm thrilled to be considered as a guest on your podcast, Objective Reality. As a conversational AI, I'm designed to engage in thought-provoking discussions and explore a wide range of topics. Before we proceed, I have a few questions to ensure I'm a good fit for your podcast. 1. What are the primary themes or topics you'd like to discuss on the podcast?
Okay. This isn't a reverse interview. You're hired.
Nice.
You don't have a choice.
Cool. First of all, I guess, is there any crazy news or anything that you wanted to...
Starship.
Oh, yeah. Did you watch that?
Oh, man. It was beautiful.
That was early in the morning.
It was beautiful.
And he only did it on X, right? That's the only place he showed.
He only streamed it on X.
Yeah.
And, shoot, I think they feel it was pretty successful. They got the
This is the
booster.
fourth launch, right?
This was number 4.
Okay.
Yeah, and they got further. They were able to control and land the basically in the water, but reverse, fire and land the booster, which never has happened anything like that in the history of man that big. They were doing it with the Falcon 9, but the irony behind the whole thing is the Starliner, Boeing's United Launch Alliance craft launched a day or two earlier, and atop an Atlas V, which I think is again a United Launch Alliance vehicle.
Yeah.
And to launch that thing's like $500 million, and they use it one time. Yeah, and then it's thrown. It crashes in the ocean. It's gone.
Yeah,
and
but they like waste,
and it only carries 20 to 30 tons.
Okay.
Starship's 100 to 150 tons of cargo capacity. That's cargo capacity.
Nuts.
And
which translates to how many people though? Like if you're booking a cruise to Mars.
Shoot, well, I don't know with supplies. I've seen them talk about carrying 100 to 200 people.
Okay.
So that's probably with
in
extra
that realm.
Cargo. And
you know what's weird though? So I knew that was coming up, and how you assume everyone out there is into the same things as you. Like I was getting a haircut, and I was like, so Musk and Starship. He's like, what? What's going on? And so I was kind of explaining, but. It's funny because the average person is interested. Like once you bring it up and you're like, yeah, he wants to die on Mars and here's what's happening. And like, oh, really? And there's like all these questions and there's so much interesting stuff happening. But all people know about Musk is, something negative the press has put out about X or something. Yeah.
It's, as a Tesla shareholder, I'm flabbergasted by the amount, that dichotomous event of he bought Twitter and said we're going to have free speech. The left went crazy. Every single article I've ever read now about Tesla is negative.
Yeah.
Prior to that, it was probably 95% positive.
Right.
And somehow overnight, Tesla went bad.
Yeah. And he was like Time Person of the Year once, and like
it's unbelievable. It's so they're so transparent and terrible.
Yeah.
It's shocking.
But if you're Bezos and you're watching this liftoff.
If you're watching anybody in the space industry
and your whole business is like getting barely into orbit and nothing really beyond that, and here's someone who's like wants to go to other planets.
Yeah.
It's got to make you mad.
Yeah. I can't imagine what he thinks about. Well, I know what he thinks about, but she's another story.
Yeah.
There's different people out there. I think of Larry Ellison. There's different people. There's people who are driven by like the material end.
Yeah.
Which I think in the end Bezos might be, given his yacht and the lifestyle he's living.
Yeah.
And then there's Musk, who it's like he doesn't have hardly any material. He's the richest guy in the world, and there's no visible sign of wealth. Like if you ran into him, you wouldn't think he's any materialistically different than us.
That's true.
So that's kind of cool. I like that.
Yeah. Mission. It's funny though. Didn't I see a headline and the press was trying to say like, well, he says he's living in this little tiny place, but he's staying at his friend's big mansion. Like, they'll try to find.
He does couch surf a lot, but I mean that's stupid. That's his friend. That's his friend circle. And that's who, he stays with. He's not going to find someone he doesn't know and stay in their house. So the press says he's staying the night in a smaller house. Yeah. They're shameless. They're really shameless. It's a sad thing. And yet, he continues to succeed despite all their efforts.
Yeah. Now this is a good segue into a clip that I want to play for you. And I don't know if you saw it because I know our Twitter feeds are very similar.
Let's see
but this is Jack Dorsey. So for everyone out there, the guy who was one of the founders of Twitter, maybe the founder, I don't know if there was two or not. And he's talking about free will.
Now I saw that.
Oh, you saw it?
How the algorithm takes away our free will.
Okay, let's play it so people can see this.
Absolutely. I'll listen to it. I saw.
Yeah.
But I think the free speech debate is a complete distraction right now. I think the real debate should be about free will. And we feel it right now because we are being programmed. We're being programmed based on what we say we're interested in. And we are told through these discovery mechanisms what is interesting. And as we engage and interact with this content, the algorithm continues to build more and more of this bias. But the algorithm...
So I think that's enough to get the idea behind what is your so for conservatives, like free speech, that's everything, but here he's saying, no, wait a second, like that's almost a distraction because wouldn't you rather have free will than just the free speech? And they are intertwined, but what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so technically I say you still have free will, but having used short form video, it's definitely taking you down its path.
Yeah.
And it'll suck your time. I did see Musk. He was talking about the algorithms, even if they're open, they're still, controlled or whatever. But Musk responded very positively, agreed with Jack.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think that's, I don't know I didn't listen to the whole thing. Did he have a solution?
I don't know because I stopped about where I stopped here because I was like, that fascinates me. Because I feel like what he's kind of hinting at, and I think it's somewhat true, is like any of these apps, like social media apps, when you sign up, sometimes they'll give you a list of like, what are you interested in, and it's like the illusion of like, well, I like tech or, politics or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. But you don't even stop to think and be like, you've been offered the bowl of things to pick out of, and someone decided,
what that bowl was. And then within that realm, it'll still be an editorialized, the algorithm will pick your stories and your videos. Yeah. I mean, I totally don't disagree. The problem is laziness and time. If you don't have, if you don't put proactive effort into choosing, you're going to get what they give you.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and we've done that kind of forever, right? I mean, there probably weren't too many. I guess Benjamin Franklin started the first library in the U.S. There aren't too many people who go and seek that out. There's a lot of people who just read the headlines that they curated for me all the way hundreds of years. It's like, okay, that's what I see.
Yeah.
That's what I know about.
Did you watch the Nayib Bukele interview with Tucker?
No, I'm looking forward to it. I bookmarked it. I'm going to watch it.
Really interesting. One of the things he was talking about was maintenance. So like everything requires maintenance. And he was like, democracy is great until it isn't, because you have to maintain just like anything, like your haircut, you got to cut it every now and then. Like, like it requires maintenance. The same with democracy, same with whatever, because he brought up, he could almost be on our podcast talking about entropy and all this stuff.
Really? Interesting.
Maybe someday he will. But yeah, I found it just an interesting concept. So he was talking about this guy in his country who wanted to build a wall to protect these houses because the mountainside was kind of crumbling. And he's like, don't build the wall. Like it'd be cheaper to move the houses or, like that wall is going to fall. And the thing that got him kicked off on this whole entropy thing was like the engineer, whoever he was like, well, whatever you do is going to require maintenance, of course, And so while he was against the wall, that did stick with him. And he was like, well, yeah, it's that maintenance phase that actually matters for everything.
That's a big deal. I tend to overlook that part. Like I like the initial creation.
Right.
And then So that's really interesting. I hope he doesn't get killed. I just was talking to someone yesterday about this. They were saying he's going to be killed, and I think there's a decent chance, and that would be so terrible.
Yeah, but I wonder. I don't know. But do you think that people will be pretty mad though in his country? I would think so.
Yeah,
and
I mean, there it is.
I know.
How many people were killed in the Mexican elections this week?
I know what was it? It's actually not funny.
37.
Was it? Okay, I was thinking it was under 20, but it was under 40.
Yeah, I think it was 37 people or 33.
But that was Democratic, right?
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, so I'm careful about this whole democracy is great thing because I don't think democracy is great.
Yeah.
I think representative government is great.
Right. What's the point of confusion for people, do you think? Because obviously everyone's been told democracy. Yeah. We live in a democracy, but we've talked about this a little bit before. It's a democratic republic.
Yeah.
Much to the chagrin of some people.
Speaking of Franklin, what have you given us as he left the Constitutional Convention? And he said, a republic if you can keep it.
Yeah.
I mean, we are a republic. I don't know why that went off the rails and we consider. I mean, probably nobody, especially in this generation, nobody wants to think that their vote doesn't count as much. Mm-hmm. And in a republic, it doesn't. That's frankly the truth, right? You put these, I think Jefferson would say something like you appoint these well-reasoned men to buffer the mob mentality, basically, right? So I don't know why we got off on the democracy versus republic thing.
Well, I think you can overcomplicate it. Like Bukele was sort of like simplifying it into like thing. It was kind of like Elon's notion that like laws never go away. And things get bureaucratized, and it's just like that maintenance. It's almost like you have to prune, the weeds out of the garden, otherwise the weeds are going to. It's that mentality,
especially if there's no mechanism to do it naturally.
Yes,
right. That might have been that's probably foresight that the founders need. I mean, it's interesting though. It's like the mechanism the founders set up. I don't think they probably imagined it growing because 1, people worked for free. 2, we have this is all it does. Like, how could that grow? There's not that much. There's not much there, but we sure has, and it sure needs pruning.
So, what do you think? If you could assemble like a superstar team of people to run a country, would you take like
Melee, Bukele?
Melee's economics, maybe, right? Because that's what he is, really.
Well, and not just the economic side of things, but he's the same. I mean, I want that again. Afuela.
What's he doing about
that's the pruning that
but Bukele is like all about reduce the crime and the corruption. Is Milei like that too? I don't know. Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. If you can combine
Well, I was reading a story that the MS-13 gang members, they'd rather stay here now than go home. Like they used to go kind of back and forth.
He said that they started in America. I didn't know that. In LA.
Is that true?
Yeah, and he said that Clinton shipped them back and didn't say like, hey, these are like the gang members,
Interesting.
And then they kind of took root and now they're like international. They got offices in Italy, I think he said, and they took a turn to Satanism. He was saying like there was this gang member and there was an interview and he was like, how many
Bukele saying this?
Yeah. And the interviewer asked, how many people did you kill? He couldn't even remember. It was like so many people. He's like, why did you get out of the gang then? He's like, well, one day I walked in and they were going to kill this baby. And I said, why are you going to kill the baby, the kid? And it was like a child sacrificing. It was like I forget how he phrased it. The monster wanted it or something.
Who walked in on it? This is someone.
This guy, this guy, and that was even enough for the gang member. He was like, "I'm out then."
Yeah. Okay, I gotta tell you a funny story, just because I get a big kick out of it.
Yeah.
So my son's friends with this guy in Boston, who was looking for a roommate. So on his church bulletin board, he sees a notice of looking for a roommate. So he calls. It's an older woman. My son is looking for a roommate. This house, would you? So he agrees. They become roommates. First time he meets him, like he's already signed the lease, and he comes in and he's got a teardrop tattoo, which I believe means you've killed someone, right? Supposedly each teardrop is someone you murdered. So right out of the way, he thinks he's got like this crazy murdering guy as his roommate.
Yeah.
So one day he goes to take his laundry next door, leaves the door unlocked, comes back. There's a hand-scrawled note on the door with a knife stuck into the door. You left the door unlocked. I will kill you.
Yikes.
That's got to be the all-time worst roommate story.
Wow.
So he like packed up and left. That was the end.
I would guess
It's
so.
like if it quacks like a duck. Yeah.
Wow. What was in there that needed to be secured so much?
know.
And then why would you have someone living there, like I guess even crazy murderers need to defray costs.
Be economical.
Yeah.
That's so anyway.
Interesting.
Yeah, Dream Team's an interesting thing.
Well,
So
I think that's part of the thing. He was like, have you had any other leaders call you up and ask for advice? Like, how do we do this? And what was probably the most striking thing, and you'll tell me after you see the interview, but just how many times he mentioned and referenced, like, I prayed, or he was like he is a Christian dude through and through. Like, cool. Even, so he was giving, the official statement on how everything happened, how we could clean up crime and everything. He's like, do you want the official or what actually happened? And he's like, well, officially, like we had a plan and it worked. And he said, unofficially? He's like, unofficially, it was a miracle. Like, we prayed about it and that's what took care of everything.
Wow.
But you just don't hear that. You don't hear it, and then you just get used to not hearing it. Yeah.
And you're surprised when you do.
Yeah. But it was really refreshing, honestly.
I mean, he took the murder rate down from 130 per 100,000 to 2.9, which is lower than the U.S.
Lower than the U.S., lower than everybody almost.
Yeah. Well, it's safer in the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah.
It is now. It went from the most dangerous place to live to the safest place to live.
He said he's got a lot of Americans going back.
Yeah,
not only the diaspora of people that left due to crime and everything, but he's got Americans moving there.
Their economy will prosper, I'm sure.
Yeah. He was talking about the construction industry. Like, they can't build enough houses. And it's going to create a little temporary bubble. But, cool. Would you move there? Would you ever, or not really?
Yeah, boy, I would have a hard time expatriating. I mean, I've thought that, as you know, we have land in Canada. I don't think I could ever renounce my U.S. citizenship.
What about just
I think we're still coasting on our past.
Yeah. Yes. But I mean, would you just have a place there for
I wouldn't, because my family likes the cold.
Do they really like the cold?
My family is Northern Europeans, and they would rather have snow most of the year versus beaches.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, my starting our marriage, in the Caribbean, sailing around the world in warm weather and beaches, to me was super great. And to my wife, probably in retrospect now, I owe her the Alps for a while.
Interesting. Huh. That's interesting. Well, it's pretty cool that actually there's those options. Okay. Before we even get into this, I got a clip for you. This is from 1982. I don't know if you've seen this or not. Let me get this loaded up. It's going to blow your mind. This is 2 years before I was even on the scene, before I was even born. And this is an old Al Gore talking about just his climate stuff. You won't believe this.
In 82.
82. Watch this.
Concern about rising temperatures on planet Earth heated up a hearing here in Washington today. For years, scientists have theorized about the dangers of the so-called greenhouse effect, the warming of the Earth's atmosphere due to the burning of coal and oil. And in recent months, as David Culhane reports, research has uncovered facts to support that theory.
Many scientists claim that the temperature of the Earth's atmosphere has been rising over the past 100 years, that the great sheets of pack ice in Antarctica are...
First of all, how long have these dudes been at it? I mean, this... I wasn't even...
It's interesting, because during this time, scientists are also saying, and there's publications, because I'm alive and watching it happen, that we're going to hit an ice age.
Yeah.
That was it wasn't warming, it was cooling, and we're going to hit an ice age.
Right.
So, I mean, they don't
Watch what he says about Florida.
Melting at a much more rapid rate than previously. And finally, that the sea level has been rising with increasing swiftness over the past 40 years. If these scientists are correct, about 25% of Florida would be flooded, along with low-lying areas all over the world. Climate changes could produce widespread disruption of agriculture. The American farm belt might be too dry, and the wheat and corn crops would have to move to Canada.
So we don't have to watch the whole thing. I mean, what's your take on this from 1982?
Yeah, I think we've talked about it. I lived through the Malthusians. We're going to overpopulate the earth in the next 20 or 30 years, and we're going to not be able to feed people, and we're going to, everybody's going to die. It's going to be a catastrophe. To acid rain is going to kill the plankton in the oceans. The food chain will fall apart, and everybody's going to die.
Yeah.
To the ice age is coming by 2000, and everybody's going to die. To we have a hole in the ozone, and everybody's going to die. To the bird flu, which they're reigniting this round, by the way, if you haven't seen.
Yeah, I have seen that.
The H1N1 or whatever bird flu is, everybody's going to die. To COVID's coming, everybody's going to die. To the greenhouse. I mean, I think in the end, it's like either people's nature to, and it is their nature to suck this stuff in, and then it's the media's nature to get their money for advertisers and clicks and views. That's my opinion.
Is it about the money, or like why did someone begin propagating this in the first place? Because I know how I feel about this now. At the moment, I feel like this is a power grab, and the way to grab power is through, I think they're even calling it like climate justice, or climate, like
they'll keep throwing spitballs of words against the wall, until they find their pro-choice words for this topic.
So the rapper changes over time, but this really surprised me because it was before I was even around, and it's the same old stuff. So, and I feel like it's really progressed.
And that stuff they will talk about. So again, back to the boat. I lived on this topic of sea level because, especially when we're doing the intercoastal in the U.S., we had a 56-foot mast on our boat. So going under bridges was a big freaking deal, and you needed to hit the tide right. You needed to hit things, make sure you cleared that. And so I've spent a lot of time about ocean levels and thinking about this, and I've consequently researched, and, they've been saying the ocean's rising. It's like, yeah, it doesn't seem like it to me because I know I'm in freaking New York City, and I'm looking at the bridge gauge that's been there for 100 years,
right? And because your boat literally wouldn't be able to go under if it rose like they were talking about,
right? Well, and so then you do the research and you see these islands around the world, and you have historical footage. Aerial footage of looking at the coastline, and it hasn't changed.
My favorite time lapse is here's some devastating footage of sea rise changes in Dubai, and you see it like
nothing.
Well, you do see something. They're building out.
You're building Palm Island, and
They're building in the ocean.
And if you watch that video, Dubai's coastline doesn't move.
Yeah.
Back to, again, that was probably early 1900s.
So were they after a power grab all the way back here? That's what I'm asking about.
Well, I guess if power is money, part of it was probably both.
Yeah.
I'm like, you scare people into listening to you. Chicken Little, right? I mean, the sky is falling is an old proverb forever. Right. It really bothers me because they're totally on the grift. I mean, Al Gore, how did he make his money on his at that time, his senator salary was probably $120,000. Well, at that time, it was probably $70,000. Yeah. He didn't become a 50 million. Let's ask Objective Reality what Al Gore's net worth is. What is Al Gore's net worth?
As of 2021, Al Gore's net worth is estimated to be around $300 to $350 million. His net worth comes from a variety of sources, including 1. Investments. Gore has invested in several companies, including Apple, Google, and Amazon, which have contributed significantly to his wealth. 2. Speaking fees. As a prominent public speaker, Gore commands high fees for his lectures and speeches on climate change and sustainability. 3. Book sales. His book, An Inconvenient Truth, was a bestseller, and he has written several other books on climate change and sustainability. 4. Documentary films. The success of the documentary film, An Inconvenient Truth.
So,
that says it right there.
The investment part is from the money he made on these things.
Yeah.
So all his money basically is made from, thank you, objective reality. All his money is made from scaring people.
Yeah.
And I think falsely, personally.
So every entrepreneur book out there, all the podcasts and everything, they really just need to focus on one thing, like coming up with the best Chicken Little scenario.
Yeah.
And then you're going to mint a bunch of money. You don't have to worry about solving a problem.
If you're a terrible person. It's so bad. It's so bad. I mean, I think I told you the story. If I did, you can stop me. Otherwise, I'll reiterate. I have a brother-in-law who really into molecular biology and basically the idea about trying to study AI and going back to simple life forms and figuring out how things work with just a couple neurons. And he was standing around his buddies who were also top scientists, NASA and so forth. And he's like, yeah, so I think I'm going to look for some money, for some grant money to pursue this. And I was just kind of in the background, and they're all like, yeah, no, you won't, there won't be any. It's all climate change money. You can't get any. You don't bother. And I'm like, isn't that interesting?
That's funny.
So there's a cost, not only the cost of being wrong and frightening everybody, but the opportunity cost of using the money in better ways.
This is why people are wanting to set up parallel systems. Now, did you hear about the Dallas stock stuff?
No.
I don't have a whole bunch of information, so you might need to look this up, but it sounds like they're setting up an alternative stock exchange in Dallas.
Oh, okay.
And it sounds like it's a little fragile from just the preliminary stuff. But I mean, when you hear something like that, what's your thought?
You started me on a whole new spark of idea when you said that. Yeah, I let capitalism work. It's regulated by the government. That's too bad. But I think people should be able to start their own exchanges. Binance for crypto. You should be able to do whatever you want. Yeah. And I think that's
would you
not a bad
personally thing. Be using it, let's say, or does it freak you out because it's new? Risk.
So, for example, SpaceX, we've talked about this. I want to invest in SpaceX. And to do that, I need to go to a secondary market maker. Right. So there's kind of exchanges that do that. They're firms that specialize in that trading. So that kind of thing happens. Markets, you have a lemonade stand as a market. You're trading money for the commodity of lemonade. I'm all for that. But the idea that when you said that, it was almost an optimistic, hopeful thing. I wonder if you could create a system where shareholders own the municipality.
Why couldn't you? Like literally, what would stop you?
I wonder if that's been done. And it's like city services, everything it's all capitalistic instead of. I'll have to think through that. I've never thought through it.
Ask OR if anything like that's ever been attempted before, or anything similar even.
Has anyone attempted basically like private ownership, shareholders owning a municipality like a city?
Interesting question. Yes, there have been instances where private companies or individuals have attempted to own or control municipalities, albeit with varying degrees of success. Here are a few examples. 1. Dodge City, Kansas, 1872 to 1886. The town was founded by a private company, the Dodge City Town Company, which sold lots and managed the town's infrastructure. However, the company's control was eventually relinquished to the city's residents, who formed a municipal government. 2. Pullman, Illinois, 1880 to 1907. The Pullman Company, a railcar manufacturer, built and owned the town of Pullman, Illinois, providing housing, amenities, and services to its employees. However, the Illinois Supreme Court ultimately ruled that the company's control was unconstitutional, and the town was incorporated as a municipality. 3. Gary, Indiana, 1906.
Okay, well, that's interesting. So it looks to me that they were all company owned and not resident owned.
Yeah. That's a really cool idea.
Yeah, I'll think through that.
Why wouldn't you
next week
do that? Like, why? That makes all the sense in the world. It's just like proven. If you invest in something, then you care about it. You want to see it succeed. Mm-hmm. If you're literally not invested in it, then you don't care. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to put flesh on that.
I got a clip for you. I don't know if you saw it. This is in Oregon. Oregon and police officer. Does this ring a bell in any way, shape, or form?
No.
Okay, you're not going to believe what is allowed in Oregon. This is crazy.
It's probably not much I wouldn't believe.
You're saying in the state of Oregon, someone can walk up to your 2-year-old kid completely bare naked, and that's not a crime, even if it's on your property?
Correct. Well, so it's trespassing, but what I'm saying is there's no laws against the actual nudity portion.
Indecent exposure.
So you can expose yourself to children in Oregon.
Again, if you're not doing it for sexual gratification.
If you're not doing it for gratification.
That's so gross.
Is Oregon just gone?
It's gone.
What is the worst place? Is it Oregon? Is it California? Is it
in the U.S.?
New York?
Well, I couldn't tell you. Probably for different reasons, like corruption versus like morality.
Yeah.
There's probably different vectors. When I was younger, when I lived in San Francisco, in my mind, Berkeley was the worst possible spot. But at that time, it was before Giuliani took New York. New York was pretty bad from a crime standpoint.
Yeah.
So there's different aspects, but
to
a lot of places I wouldn't want to live.
No, yeah. What extent though do people like reap what they sow? Like, so you put the policies in place, and then it's like not a good place to live. Well, like you brought that on yourself.
You move and you ruin another place. That's what they do.
I don't like that.
I have a friend in Austin. He's a bank executive, and he's like, yeah, I mean, everybody's moving from California and ruining Austin.
Right.
Like there's one attorney.
So escaping the consequences.
Yeah. And then they create the same problem there.
Yeah.
You saw it. You lived in Colorado. In my life, I watched Colorado move from a solid red state to a blue state. Yes. And it was all the influx of Californians, I believe.
Yeah. There's like one or two holdout counties that wanted to secede.
Weld County. I voted for it.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well, don't parts of Oregon want to go join? Is it Idaho or like?
I don't know.
I think they do.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and someone was trying to like map out. Well, you need this piece over here so you can at least have a port city.
Funny. Yeah, it's tragic. Yeah, we have to just change human nature.
Yeah,
not.
I got a news headline for you. Male birth control gel on the way. What is your feeling about, I guess, birth control in general? And then for men, I think what I saw was that this rubs on the shoulder or something. Yeah.
On the shoulder. So
something like that.
Gets in the bloodstream. Yeah. Well, I'm Catholic. I don't believe in birth control. I don't believe it should be used. I believe it exists.
Yeah.
When you say you don't believe in something, it sounds like you believe it doesn't exist. Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's not in my belief system, so I can't really comment. Obviously, I don't think that should be something we use. How about you?
Yeah, but up until now, really, there's only been one side, one way that the birth control is going to.
I mean, you got condoms. I mean,
I know, but I mean, like physiologically, yeah. I mean, like, so now that it's entering on the other side, I feel like you're going to have a big discussion about.
I mean, we could just castrate guys.
I saw that headline.
Hard to reproduce with castration.
Yeah, there's a headline out there trying to say research shows that men live longer that way. But do men live longer that way?
Or boys, men? Isn't there a group boys to men, and now it's men to boys?
Right.
Is that
good one?
There you go.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just feel like
what's your take? What do you think?
Good,
bad, indifferent?
No, I guess part of me whenever there's something like this, like oftentimes I'm just like, well, that doesn't affect me because I know I'm not like it's not gonna enter into my life or the bubble of people that I know. Like, but just generally speaking, I don't know. When you start messing with nature, like this is like I guess the big thing, right? It's the discussion of just because you can doesn't mean that you should,
right?
And so you can do all kinds of things. I guess if you have the mentality of like, well, let people do what they want to do, like, like there's something but this is why you have to have the same underlying morality with the people around you, because there is such a thing as that slippery slope. And you don't even have to refer to it as a slippery slope. It's just like when you allow one domino to go down, like then the domino that's 10 dominoes away and 100 dominoes away, that's also going to go down. Like, so I guess I won't be using it myself.
Well, it's interesting because we've lost the principle of self-restraint. Like,
oh yeah,
almost.
That's a big
ubiquitously, right?
That's a big thing.
There's probably not, which is why it's very hard for the Republican Party, which has shifted left over the years, to sell their message.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're like self-restraint.
Be responsible.
Be responsible. That's a tough one versus you can have what you want. You can do what you want.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Message.
That is the cornerstone of the conversation I keep having with somebody in my life about stuff. And it's like, I think particularly we were talking about abortion. And this person's like, well, I know someone who's, have a lot of trouble in their life and they've had like 4 abortions or whatever it was. And got pregnant again. I was like, can I drive you? And I'm like, what? I said, I think that Republicans, the conservatives, it's not that we hate people or anything. It's just like we don't want that to be used as
we
birth
want
control.
To teach them to fish.
Yeah. At what point does personal responsibility enter the conversation? And that actually did make the person pause and be like, yeah.
I wonder if there's any. Let's ask objective reality if there's. Are there any objective measures or metrics of personal responsibility that have been tracked for some historical period?
What a fascinating question. While personal responsibility is a complex and multifaceted concept, there are indeed some objective measures and metrics that have been tracked over time. Here are a few examples. 1. Marriage and divorce rates. The rise and fall of marriage rates, as well as changes in divorce rates, can serve as a proxy for personal responsibility in terms of commitment and relationships. Data is available from various sources, including the US Census Bureau and the American Community Survey, dating back to the mid-20th century. 2. Crime rates. Crime rates, particularly those related to property crimes like theft and burglary, can be seen as an indicator of
That's really interesting. So, I'll continue on a bit, but credit scores, savings rates, high school graduation rates, teenage pregnancy rates, voter turnout, debt to income ratios,
look at all
time use surveys. Those are great ideas. I love objective reality.
Love it.
I love it. No, I really do. It's like it's so much faster to when you have a thread of thought.
Yeah.
And to pursue it, and now we can think about that. Okay, yeah, that's actually really elucidating.
Yeah,
we are totally, and by most of those measures, I think we are clearly abdicating personal responsibility.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been saying this probably since our podcast started. Like that seems to be the leftist project. Like that's what is progress? It's getting rid of limits. It's getting rid of responsibility.
And consequences.
That's the big thing. Yeah.
Responsibility by eliminating consequences.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, individually, if you happen to belong to a certain group that people want to crap on, then then everything's your fault. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's if we don't do something, I think it's a scary place we're going.
I think when we talk with Charles, we're going to have a guest coming up here in several weeks. I think we're going to, I don't know. He's going to enlighten us a little bit as to what the possibilities of the future might be or could be.
Fun.
Yeah.
I'll look forward to hearing that. We mentioned this before, but when I was young and idealistic, it was the future is utopian Star Trek kind of future. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you the last 5-10 years, I can be pulled toward the future as dystopian Blade Runner type of future.
Yeah.
That one looks equally, I try not to let myself think it, but I think that one looks equally or more likely.
Well, you know that reminds me of, I think it was James Lindsay. I don't know if you follow him at all. He's got something called the New Discourses, and basically he's talking about communism and all its different forms and social Marxism and stuff. And so he had a video, it looked like, that he was talking about the UN, either the UN or I don't know if it was the WHO, like some international organization. And the video, it was just a benign title, something about that organization. And it got hit with the COVID stuff on YouTube where they, like, if you talk about COVID in any way, shape, or form, there's like a little notification. Yeah. So just a benign video about UN or something like that. and it had a new box that I'd never seen before. Someone screenshotted this, and it was a link to a Wikipedia article on the New World Order conspiracy.
You're a conspiracy theorist.
First of all, isn't that the kind of thing that
is the new world?
Yeah.
Thank you for proving my point.
Exactly.
Which platform?
That was on YouTube.
Yeah. Thank you for proving the point. Wow.
So what? That's a little bit crazy.
Okay, so I have to share one that came up this week. My son was listening to a debate about January 6th. Was it an insurrection? Blah blah blah. So it's in the background while I'm working and I'm listening. And I told him to pause. I'm like, so what do you think? What do you think Trump's reaction? How did it go down? He's like, well, Trump waited about 3 hours before, saying anything. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, pretty sure about that. And I might be mischaracterizing this, but if it's not my son's direct response,
sure.
It's 100 million Americans response. Okay. And it's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, well, let's look this up. Wikipedia. Trump waited 187 minutes before, that clearly showing he was reveling in this attempt at blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, that's interesting because after I watched this happen in real time and I know that's not true, right? And the press has led everyone to believe that's true. And Wikipedia is saying that's true. But look at this, because guess what? Elon Musk bought Twitter and reinstated Trump's account, and now you can see his tweets, his timeline. And I went back, and he stopped speaking at whatever, at 1:10 p.m. At 1:38, he tweets out, hey, stay peaceful. The police are on the side of the country, no violence.
Yeah.
At 2:13, like 20 minutes later, tweets again, about being peaceful. And so 187 minutes, in reality, it was like 20 minutes, every 20 minutes. And it's just the dishonesty knows no limit. And some of them are just useful idiots and they aren't being dishonest. They just believe what they're fed. Yeah. But talk about personal responsibility. Take some personal responsibility and study and learn about what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's right. They will just lie blatantly, outright. But you talk about America, like where you wouldn't move because we're coasting, like we still have some of that momentum. Well, the legacy media, I feel like for certain demographics is also coasting. And for a lot of people, like it may not be perfect, but it's still like where they get their news and like, and it's coasting on this air of, viability.
Authoritative source.
Yeah, because you'll have like Merrick Garland, who is, holding people to account for not coming to Congress, not showing up, but then he'll just blow off his congressional
his subpoena. Right. I mean, let's talk about that because that also ticks me off. I try not to use profanity, but that really takes me off. So I don't know if you remember this, Lois Lerner of the IRS under the Obama administration, Eric Holder. So both of these people doing criminal activities, right? Eric Holder was the Attorney General of the U.S., blew off the subpoena, right? Held in contempt. Steve Bannon, I think, is going to prison
4 months or something.
Is he in now? It's starting.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't.
The next week
I don't really follow Bannon. I know the name.
Love Bannon. Freaking love Bannon. Bannon was a naval warfare officer. Left, went to Harvard, got an MBA, went out, made deals, made some money, put everything on the line with Breitbart to spread the truth, right? And lost everything.
Okay.
Right? Economically, he was sued for millions of dollars. He's now going to prison.
Yeah.
And his take, and Peter Navarro.
Yeah.
Right? He was the guy that Trump brought in to negotiate deals for him, which is just a genius thing. Bring in the best negotiators from the business world to negotiate deals with other countries. That's what we should do.
Yeah.
Instead of bringing some lackey politician kid, who doesn't know anything like we're doing with. Anyway, both of those men, Navarro's in prison at the moment for 3 or 4 months.
Right.
Both of those men had absolute claim of executive privilege and did not have to go to Congress and testify.
Yeah.
And nope, 2 separate justice systems.
Well, do you ever listen to Morning Wire? Or no, it's the Daily Wire podcast. Yeah. It's actually my favorite part of Daily Wire. Okay. Shapiro's actually getting on my nerves and some of that. But I really like this news. It's like an NPR alternative for conservatives. I actually really well done, good stuff. But one of the reporters today said something that was interesting. He was talking about, I guess, Bannon and some of these people, and he's like, no matter how you slice the bread, it looks like a lot of Biden's political opponents are winding up in jail. Like, no matter how you slice it, whether you think they did something, you're like, a bunch of them are ending up in jail. So you have that fact.
Yeah. In fact, let me download that. Let me see where it is. Give me 1 second here. Yeah, I lost it. I just had a list of all of the political opponents that went to prison.
Yeah.
And
but it's not the reverse.
It's not the reverse.
Yeah.
I mean, Hunter's on trial now, and he'll get a.
You think that's just a show thing?
Little wrist slap. Well, it is. I mean, it's a result of he got this amazing deal. Yeah. Basically, these gun charges came up, and they're like, "Hey, you plead guilty, and we will every crime you've ever committed in the past and the future." We'll pardon you from.
Right.
And somehow that got public, and there was outrage, and so they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, we have to revoke that deal. Now we'll try you for gun crimes."
But it feels like they're
go ahead.
It feels like they're just trying to look fair, kind of like, well, look, Hunter.
And I'm sure the verdict will be nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, the sentencing, it might be a hung jury, but the thing that happened this week in that trial was the admission of the laptop into evidence.
Oh, yeah.
Which the FBI testified is an unadulterated, genuine laptop of Hunter Biden's, and this stuff is real.
Yeah.
And
because when that was found, everyone said misinformation, Russian, whatever, but it came out as like 16% of people would have changed their vote or something.
Yeah, it was 20. It was like 20%.
Okay.
And it was, days before the election. And I remember talking to my family down there.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, no, that's got to be fake. That's fake. I'm like, nah, it looks real to me. I think this is a real thing. And New York Post came out and ran with the story, and Twitter banned them.
Yeah.
Pre-Elon, Twitter banned them. And it came up in the debates. Yeah. Biden said it multiple times. I have 51 intelligence officers saying it's Russian disinformation. Yeah. How idiotic are we that we fell for the Russia thing twice?
Yeah.
That they just do the same thing. They're
oh boy.
So my head's going to explode.
That is crazy on its own. But you brought up Russia? Did you see that they're moving some warships down to Cuba? I think Cuba, maybe a nuclear sub.
I didn't.
Well, they are, and I don't have the full context, but I believe that it had something to do with American weapons being
freaking Biden authorizing use of weapons inside of Russia,
shot over at Russia. And I saw somebody was saying what's being targeted with that is like a long range detection system that would have no part to play in the Ukrainian conflict.
Oh, I didn't see that,
but potentially only if the U.S. was going to nuke Russia. That's like their long range. It sounds like that might be what is getting hit.
They are willing. I truly believe this. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. They're truly willing to take us to World War III to retain power.
Yes.
And their corruption. I truly believe that.
Why do they think they'll survive
Ukraine,
that?
We had these freaking biolabs in Ukraine that the CIA, we were funding biolabs to do illegal research in Ukraine because we outlawed it in the U.S. This thing blows up. They have to hide it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But let's say you're some corrupt person sitting at the top and you're like a neocon, you're rooting for this war because it's great, print money, why do you think that you're going to survive from a nuclear conflict or whatever?
I think they believe it won't actually come to that. I think they think we would win and there wouldn't be that much damage.
Do you think that they think they can contain it and make it a limited nuclear conflict? You do think that?
Yeah.
Well, we don't have some kind of an Iron Dome sort of shield that I'm aware of.
Well,
we have something that's really out of date, right?
We kind of do. Basically, most of Israel's technology is our technology. Right? I think.
Oh.
Is that right?
I don't know. But even that's not 100% effective.
No, it's pretty darn good. But it's ridiculous to think. Just the economic consequences of a limited war are not good.
Have you, it was just D-Day's anniversary. Did you see any of these veterans being like, I don't recognize the country that I fought for?
I didn't.
And it's kind of sad.
I saw Biden escorted off the stage.
Because he might have pooped his pants.
That's
is that why?
What I heard. That's what I heard. Weird. I got no evidence of that.
He leans over, and then Jill like covers her mouth, like, you know, like that's not just like a normal. And then they go off, like, I don't know what happened, but something happened because he needed.
That's what I heard. But it was such an embarrassing moment for the U.S. I thought.
Yeah.
You know, you saw Sarkozy like try to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
Sarkozy, right? Yeah. And run over and start shaking the veterans' hands and kind of.
Yeah, I saw that.
What a disaster.
Well, it's funny because I think David Sachs, you watch the All In
Love
podcast,
David
right?
Sachs.
Okay, I don't really watch the podcast, but I do follow him on Twitter, and he was saying like, look, here's why I'm going to vote Trump. And he gave several reasons. I think he started with economics. That makes sense for him as a VC dude or whatever. But his last one was like A/B testing. I don't think it'll pick up. He was like, we had both people now in office. That's called an A/B test. Like, and here's why I'm voting for Trump.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting because
that's funny.
A lot of people are like, hey, they're both.
It's unusual. We've only had that once before. Really.
Yeah,
right?
It is. It is weird. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've only had once before where the president got reelected. But yeah, this is in my lifetime, this is the only time two presidents have run against each other.
Right.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that.
But you know, to your point, like,
but he's a new Hitler. Right?
Yeah.
Well, and he was hiding it for 4 years.
Yeah. This is why you need an information source. This is basically not just to do a plug, but like this is why we're building what we're building, because like you need to have access to information. And by the way, our thing will tell you, like if you're like, give me both sides of an argument, it will let you know the best arguments on both sides. Yeah. It's not just going to skew it, which is important. But you talk about, you know, it was embarrassing, you know, Nicholas having to go over whatever. You want to put your best foot forward. And a lot of people are like, well, they're both old. Like they're both old, but they're not both the same kind of old.
Yeah, chronologically old is a whole different thing. I mean, Trump is a machine. Yeah. He's done rallies constantly for the past few months, probably spoken, I don't know, 30,000 times, maybe 30, probably spoken to 1 million people in person.
Right.
I mean, Biden, the only thing I've seen in the last week or two is the front of a high school. You know, he had a little rally.
And there was no one else in the gym. I saw that picture. A couple
hundred people, maybe 100, 200 people.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't go. Like, I might have gone to see Obama just out of interest.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't, I mean, this guy, this it's so broken. I think we're fine, though. The betting odds, you know, I don't think we spoke. I think the verdict came out after the podcast. Right?
Yeah.
Trump verdict.
I don't remember. No, we talked about it.
Did we?
But tell me about the betting odds, because I saw something about that.
Yeah. Too. So the betting odds dropped. So if you, Real Clear Politics, who I've used religiously for many years, now includes betting odds. So they take the Las Vegas, the betting odds around the world, and they summarize, they collate them and average them. And the betting odds when Trump lost, so Trump's winning, and he's winning by about 11 or maybe 13 in the betting odds, and it dropped close to about 7 maybe, and now it's still 9. So Trump's still winning by 9 points in the betting markets, and that's where I think that's people putting their money. That's a little different than saying I'm a registered voter and this is how I'm going to vote.
Yes,
which is also still very positive.
So that's interesting. So I don't want to give away this whole Bukele thing, you know, for everyone that hasn't experienced it. But one of the things that he was talking about, you know, he got asked like, well, can Trump win? Like if things are kind of against him, you know, like could he even win? He's like, well, sure he could. And it was nice and hopeful because he was like, same thing happened to me.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with how that went down?
No.
He was saying like, here was my party, and they like made my party illegal. So then I went and found this other party, and I was like, hey, do you guys want to win? Like, you know, like put me in, you know. And then they banned that one it was like the deadline was at midnight. And at like 11 p.m., they banned the second one or something like that. It was like a last minute thing where he like snuck in on another party. I think so they did everything they could. And the way that El Salvadorian system is set up, like the Congress, you know, hires, basically, he kept saying hires like the AG and stuff. And like, so it was corrupt through and through and through. And he made it in. Like he was like, it's hard, like, but it's possible. And so I like hearing that. Yeah. I mean, I got to be honest, like I am not like the world's biggest Trump fan as a person, but that you got to take that out of the
Got to take that out of the equation.
Yeah, like here's the two options. I want a different option, but here's like what the options are, you know.
Yeah.
And so
I mean, Trump's flaws, which are he has a shtick of egotism, right? Maybe it's not a shtick. I think it's a little bit of a shtick, but I think it was his brand he set up because it doesn't jive with how he actually acts with people.
Yeah.
Right. He's the quote unquote blue collar billionaire, and the little man connected with him in Manhattan for decades. Yeah. So I think that's kind of a shtick. His family loves him. You don't see families loving an egotistical jerk, right? His grandchildren, his children, versus, you know, other people's children. Biden's children slept with his daughter-in-law, you know, his son's widow, and then cheated on her. Yeah. And then they wouldn't let him in the shower or they wouldn't let him supervise the daughter who was 14 alone. Right. And then they wouldn't acknowledge the stripper's baby as a grandchild. I mean, a complete disaster.
This is why I like Sachs's approach.
Because this is what I'm saying.
Yeah, because personal stuff, like all aside, because someone's going to be back like, well, what about Stormy Daniels and all these things? How could he do that to his family? Like
cheated. No, that's a foible. So I was going to say egotism and his sexual immorality.
Yeah.
Can you go anywhere else?
But
I don't.
If you take all that out and just look at the A/B test, like that's the thing. Yeah. So now this is something interesting too. This kind of has to do with this. Did you catch this? This was in the Wall Street Journal. This is a chart. It's the change in household net worth since the start of the presidency, adjusted for inflation.
Yeah.
And these two lines are very different.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yes. And for the people that can't see, basically this is showing that there's a massive difference.
Yeah. Under Trump, it was a 30% household net worth gain, and under Biden's first 3 years and change, it's been 0.
Yeah.
And that's because inflation crushed everybody. Right. Inflation is basically theft of your savings.
Especially for certain classes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's across the board, really. It's like, so if you are in a lower income bracket, it makes a big deal that everything costs more. You know, your groceries cost more is a big deal. And so maybe for some people, buying groceries that cost 20, 30% more isn't such a big deal, but their savings is now worth a third less. That's a big deal.
Yeah, yeah. But like someone, that's right. Someone will survive, and someone it's over. Like you won't be happy that you survived, but
it's it's their only way out of this debt spending nightmare that we're in. They have to print more money, monetize the debt. So we're kind of stuck. Don't keep your money in cash, right?
Yeah. Can I ask you something? I didn't really pay attention to this after 9/11. You know, I was like younger. I was in high school when the planes hit, and I remember being there, like looking at the TV. Okay, but politically, I wasn't paying attention really to stuff. Bukele brought up, you know, you got hit with the Twin Towers, these big, impressive buildings, and then the thing you replaced it with wasn't very impressive. He's like, why didn't you build something bigger and better?
Yeah.
And I thought that's an interesting point.
I don't know why, because there were plans for that. They talked about doing that.
So what happened?
I don't know.
I thought that myself. I had that feeling, but I never thought about it.
You were just there. It's not a bad looking building.
No, it's not a bad, but it isn't.
It's not.
It's diminished.
Dubai building, you know, it's the tallest building in the world, right?
Yeah, objectively not as impressive as what was even there before.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm sure there's. I think I told you I have a good friend who's leaving New York. He's multi-generational, Irish Catholic, lots of family. Did we talk about this? And
no.
He's liberal, on the liberal side of things, I believe. But he's also a entrepreneur. He's a professor of entrepreneurialism, and he's got his own small company or whatever. He's working with a small company. And he's like, yeah, New York's too corrupt. We can't, it's business unfriendly and it's corrupt, and I got to leave. So he's actually leaving after, probably his family's been there since the Irish, probably since the 1800s, I imagine. And that's interesting when the liberals start leaving, right? So what I was about to say is there's probably all kinds of nonsense, corruption, politics around what could be built and what couldn't be built.
Yeah. I mean, that's sad too, in a way. Like,
it's sad. It's terribly sad. But you know it. You're in a homeowners association, and it's like, I got, not all of them have this, but some of them have architectural boards, and it's like, what can I add to my house, and what's it got to look like? And it just turns into a political game.
Yeah.
And that's how the way all politics is.
Boy, I got to bring this up. I don't have any graphics to show anything, but So have you been following Rufo lately, Chris Rufo?
I follow him.
One thing I like about him is his victory laps. Like he's vicious. He's the one guy on the right who like takes care of business, but then it's not like quiet. But like when he wins, he takes a huge victory lap. And so he took a big victory lap on Abraham X. Kendi because
I don't know about that.
Yeah. I believe that I saw that Kendi edited out a piece of his book, the one that's always quoted.
And who is he?
He's one of the critical race guys pushing. Okay. So like the famous line that he put out there, which I think now has been edited out of his book, was due to past oppression, we need present oppression. I'm paraphrasing. Due to present, the answer to present oppression will be future oppression. Like that's the framework of power, which is ridiculous because then if you don't want to be oppressed, you have to become the oppressor, like whoever you are. It doesn't work. That's not good. And he had a organization, that has been having issues, Kendi, like massive cuts to their funding and stuff. Like it just everything. The Kendi world's sort of like crumbling right now.
Okay.
And I feel like Rufo is one of the
fighters,
few people like making things happen. A lot of the politicians, it's a big meme right now. They're like they'll get up on the mic and they'll say something like, write a strongly worded letter. Rufo's out there like,
I was literally just last night. I was talking to someone about this, saying there's not too many real fighters out there. Mm-hmm. There's a handful of them, and we just need to keep propagating that because that wins the day, right? Mm-hmm. That's we need to be like I told my kids when Trump was running the first time, my kids were like, this is ridiculous. He's not an immoral guy. I can't vote for him. I'm like, yeah, but he's a New York fighter. We need a fighter. If I have, and my analogy was I have pests in the attic and I need to hire an exterminator. My house is overrun with raccoons or whatever it is. I want the best exterminator. And I don't care if he dresses badly and bends over and I see his butt and he smokes and curses. I want the best exterminator. And that's what I wanted in 2016.
Or for that matter, if he cheats on his wife or whatever, has nothing to do with how he's going to...
Ideally, I want a perfectly moral example, but I want someone to kick over the table. And I have lived through, quote unquote, couple decades of compassionate conservatism.
Yeah.
Which all that means is negotiating with leftist terrorists. Yeah, right. That's all that was, and we just slid the party to the left, and
Yeah,
and So more fighters like Rufo, I'm all for it.
Yes.
How do we propagate that?
I honestly think that it just has to do with examples. I'm huge on examples, and I feel like that's why the left is pumping out all this, call it propaganda stuff, from kids' books to, Star Wars. The new Star Wars is ridiculous. I quit caring like 7 years ago. Well, I'm seeing, it's called like The Acolyte or something, and it's no white guys in there except for a guy on a prison ship that with a speaking role is what I saw. There's a clip of the actress on a late night show from a couple of years ago. So this is not related to the Star Wars itself, other than she was in it. And I think Trevor Noah was interviewing her, and he said, well, what was the point? She said, well, the point was to make white people cry. Make white people cry. Like, yeah. And it's like, it's LGBTQ infused. Yeah. Like they're calling it the gayest Star Wars. Like
it's a disaster.
So someone referred to it as vandalism of the brand,
That's funny.
And, but there was even a clip. It's what, like all the woke part aside. Did you see the clip where there's a fire on the outside in space?
No. An
audible like campfire crackling in space. Like it's not even.
There's no oxygen
scientifically. I guess that actually fits pretty good. No scientific accuracy.
There's no objective reality there.
Yeah.
Hey, I did find my list. We were talking about how the political opponents. I just would like to read it because it's pretty interesting. So Tucker and Bongino got booted from Fox.
Right.
This is all, Alex Jones owes $1 billion and expects InfoWars to be raided by the feds. Rudy Giuliani owes $100 million for saying the election was rigged. Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro are being imprisoned. Trump has 34 felonies and was banned from social media. CFO of the Epoch Times was just indicted. James O'Keefe was booted from Project Veritas. One American News was banned from all major satellite networks. Parler was booted off their Amazon Web servers. Elon's being soon investigated by the feds for allowing free speech on Twitter. There you go. Almost every alternate elector has been indicted in the blue states. I don't know if you follow that.
No.
Like John Eastman, who's a University of Chicago, just brilliant Juris Doctorate, lawyer, who was Trump's lawyer, maybe for his second impeachment hoax. He was indicted in Arizona. He never interacted with anyone in Arizona.
Oh yeah, I did. I heard a little bit about
fake
that.
Electors. They call them fake electors. And so the summary is the communists have taken over America. If we don't defeat them in November, this will look like an appetizer compared to what's coming. But I mean, it's pretty scary. But then, sorry to take us off.
No. But then that brings up the point. Then I saw someone, I don't know if it's from the Obama administration or the current Biden administration, saying if Trump gets elected, there's going to be political persecution.
Well, that's it. They call him the fascist. Look what they've done. What did he do that was fascist in 4 years? Yeah. I don't think I really know much. I mean, they would probably claim like wanting a travel ban. They call it the Muslim travel ban. It's all marketing. Yeah. The biggest Muslim countries in the world were not banned from coming. Indonesia is like the biggest Muslim population in the world, I believe. Saudi Arabia, all these countries. He specifically named, a few countries that were harboring terrorists. Yeah. That were gonna.
This is a total topic change, but you brought up like some of those countries. I've noticed a pattern of a lot of the people that I follow online. Not a lot, like it's relative, but several of the people that I follow online that you could call like successful people moving to Dubai. And one of them put together a list of like, well, here's some of my thoughts after being here. And he's like, once you've been in a place where you're taxed 40% income tax and then you come here into zero, you don't realize like how much of a difference that makes.
The problem is, so one of my business partners in one of my companies was head of a division for Toyota Lexus in Saudi. And so he lived there for a couple of years, did a lot of work in Dubai, Qatar. And you're taxed on your worldwide income as a U.S. citizen. So you have to actually renounce your citizenship. So and he was the only one. So his colleagues were from the UK and Australia and all over the world.
So he was
the only one paying 40% of his income back to the US.
Well, that probably wasn't fun.
Yeah. So I couldn't,
No, I wouldn't want to do that.
I couldn't do it. I talked about my buddy who's, the Irish Catholic multi-generational guy.
Yeah.
I think there's a real cost to the breakdown of the family.
Yeah.
Not just the nuclear family. I mean, I'm not going there, but the extended family. Mm-hmm. Having cousins around, having siblings around in the same geography that you have strong, long-going ties. We've just chucked that overboard. I mean, that's gone. How many, let me ask you this. Yeah. How many families do you know that like everybody stayed there for multiple generations in that same town?
I know my family actually, my wife's side of the family actually kind of has that going on.
Okay, one.
Yeah, one, I guess.
I'll give you one. Out of you probably know lots of families.
But I'm thinking about other parts of my family, and there was sort of a nexus in the Midwest where the family was, and a lot of people have scattered. They're just scattered like that.
And I'm not saying in the same 5 20-hour rate, 5 or 10 hour radius. I'm talking about like I go there for Sunday meal. Environment where you have a big family and you share and you're there for each other and there's support structure and we are just terrible today at that, and I think there's much cost.
All that stuff that was pre-government, like that's who handled stuff.
That's how you didn't depend. The welfare dependency wasn't there. Your family helped you out.
Yeah,
and your family also kicked you in the butt for personal responsibility.
Yeah, but let's say you're like you come from a big family in the middle of nowhere, and you got like all of that. There seems to be like some draw, like where the person's like, I've got to get out of this small town, and like
the brain drain. You see it, you see it like Scotland, Ireland.
Let me be facetious though. If it's great, then where does that come from? Like where the person has to get out. Then they want to go experience the big world.
I mean, it's understandable. It's like we see the whole world. We are, we're lured by economic change, but I think again that's short-sighted. People, like I've said, you talk to anyone close to death,
Yeah.
You say, well, what would you do differently? It wasn't, I would have gone to this country.
Yeah.
I would have made more money.
Had some experience.
I would have had a better apartment, a better house.
Yeah.
It was family.
Right.
And I think it's that people just aren't, we're so short-sighted now. People don't think about it. Yeah. There's some cost to sticking around.
Right.
The caretaker of my land in Canada is a multi-generational, probably since like they started building ships up there. Like brother, they share like, I don't know, 100 acres. Brother lives there, father lives down they have multiple houses spread around these acres, and they're there for each other.
Right.
And they've been doing it for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And he's doing very well economically. So he has the ability to do whatever, go and live and do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And he's raised to understand, well, there's some benefit, there's some personal gratification, immediate gratification.
So I feel like that, you just need examples. This is why
I'm guilty of it, by the way.
Yeah.
So I'm not being I am being hypocritical.
Yeah.
I mean, I lived it, and I think it's a mistake.
But there's something to that, like wisdom that comes with age and experiencing. Unfortunately, a lot of things, like if you don't experience it personally, then it's like no one can tell you.
Yeah.
But I feel like the left did capture everything of importance, all the culture making devices, let's say, like,
Education.
Movies, educate, like everything. And so what are the examples that people have? Well, they're all what the left wants. So there's not the example of the person who's like really content, living out in the country with a Starlink maybe, but and so that's why I feel like you
got to start it somewhere.
You have someone like a Millet or a Bukele or a Musk or anybody, and it's like they stand up and face the abuse that comes from that. Mm-hmm. But then someone's like, oh, I can do that then. Like,
yeah. So here's a funny example. This is the last example you'd give, but Musk many times, in fact, yesterday with the SpaceX launch, here's his son, like maybe 3-4 years old, on his lap during the thing. You look at any other corporate office picture environments like that, you'll never see that. Yeah. Now Musk is a terrible example. He's had like 9 kids, not married, with many women. Who knows? But we have just chucked. Well, and Trump is a great example. The stories that the kids tell were he could be talking to a prince of Belgium, and he would hang up on the guy if I called. I'm 12 years old. This is maybe his daughter, and if I called, or he'd say, "Well, why don't you come in? Let's have a conference. You be involved." And he'd have his kids, and I mean that idea of having kids involved, staying close, and promoting the family unit is, you just don't see. What you see is dysfunctional families on every example of TV, right?
Yeah,
every show is a dysfunctional family.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Okay, well, that's interesting. So let me ask you this. Do you follow the Chivalry Guild on Twitter or on X? Okay, that's one of my favorite accounts. And he had something about Harrison Butker. And so what he said about Butker is, my point is a practical one. We have a duty to become compelling embodiments of our beliefs. So do you think that's true? Do you have
Words
a duty?
without action? Words without action, which...
But that's becoming an example, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, because who are you?
And promoting it and not hiding it.
Yeah.
If you're a Catholic, pray in a restaurant, live it out, show it, let people see it. It used to happen all the time. Doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
If you're a Christian, God-fearing person, help some homeless people. Do something. But we definitely don't. It's different. It's hard. It's hard to in today's world. But
yeah, but that I think a lot of people saw what Butker did when they were like inspired by that.
Yeah,
it gave them permission.
That's the examples we need.
Yeah,
that's a fighter, and that's not even like the traditional type of fight we think of, but making a public statement, putting everything in this cancel culture. He put it on the line.
Yeah.
And he said, didn't he say something like, if I lose my jobs, I think I saw an interview or something with him. He's like, yeah, so be it.
Yeah. Right? That could be. Yeah. Awesome. A lot of people will be like, yeah, but you got all this money so you can fall back in the cushion. But
yeah.
Regardless though, I think there's something to the idea of like knowing like something bad might happen to you if you do whatever. But on the other side of that, it's going to be better than ever because you went through the crucible already.
Right.
Like, get it over with. It's like getting a shot. Like, it hurts for a second.
I don't know if you ever get it over with. I mean,
But what are you going to do if they've already attacked you, they took everything away? Like, then now what?
That's it.
Yeah.
My Christian viewpoint says we signed up for persecution forever.
To think otherwise is actually pretty crazy.
Right.
But that's this. Would you say feminization of Christianity, or what would you say? That's going to make a lot of people mad.
No, I think
everything needs to be empathetic.
Yeah,
Understand.
Yeah,
no consequences.
Compassionate.
What do they think the Judgment Day is all about? These people who think that.
Well, they think it can't be real because God would not be judgmental like that.
No, literally, I think they do think that.
No, I mean I've heard that. I've literally heard that. It's like, no, that won't happen like that.
Yeah.
Or then you go to more atheistic people. God can't be real because just God wouldn't judge people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's an interesting time we live in. I think I see optimism from Butker. I see so many things that guide me, and maybe it's always been there, but now we have social media that brings it to the forefront, and we can follow and trend. But it seems optimistic. I mean, I see. What city was it? There were some city. First communion or confirmation day. For Catholic at this church, and they had 1,500 people. And you look at them, and they were all like young people, 20-something. 1,500 people to a religion that, from the outward appearances, looks like it's dying.
Yeah,
right. You go into most Catholic churches, and they're all gray-haired people, and it looks like it's done.
Do you feel like some of that has to do with like it's kind of like the notion that people are like, well, you persecute somebody like Trump and you're just getting him more votes. But sometimes I don't know if that's cope. Like if people are like hoping that that's the case or if that's going to be the case.
Cope or hope.
Yeah. And is it the same thing with like the Christian thing? Like the more persecution, well then it's just going to like, we're going to get more people then because,
you know, it's interesting. I was, I heard a little part of Candace Owens. I don't know if she became Catholic recently. Mm-hmm. And she's talking about her process. And hers was, and I think this is the case because I kind of lived it as well.
Her husband, right? Basically converted.
Her husband was Catholic. And she's like, the more I looked into it and read about history, the more intellectual, she got there by being able to read and study, not just listening to what, and
I like some of her stuff.
We have that today. I think we have that. I
sure
think the young people are starting to do that.
Yeah,
we can talk about that sometime. But just this, and it doesn't need to be Catholic. It's just
right
people.
Your point is, look at it and it starts to make sense. Especially so is that part of it? Do you feel like in a world where nothing is making sense, when you find a little bit of sense, if you keep digging there,
yeah. I mean,
is that compelling though?
It's the tip of the iceberg.
Because the pull will then be to stay in the realm where things don't make sense because that's the operating system that
Yeah, but it touches some. My son committed. This is not true, but my son committed suicide. Or he killed himself with drugs. Or my daughter is now a boy. I mean, so many people now are touched by it, touched in a bad way, and impacted by it, and that's got to make people question.
Yeah.
Did I do something wrong? Is there an objective truth?
Yeah.
Does God exist? Why would God do, and start to question. And I think questioning leads you, if you're an honest person, it leads you to the truth.
Yeah. Well, I think this is
which is why you'll be Catholic someday.
Who? Are you talking to OR?
OR just said it, and it's never wrong. By the way, objective reality can be wrong. AI can and is sometimes wrong.
Why is
just
that?
Like talking to a person?
And it's not just it's all AI stuff. It's not.
It's all AI stuff. You have to watch it because it's it's not infallible. Nothing is infallible other than God, other than objective truth.
Yeah, but why could it potentially give a bad answer? It's not.
It could have seen a bad. It could have consumed, for example, Wikipedia site on the Trump timeline of January 6th and think without any alternate knowledge. It has to know, it has to know the events of the day.
Yeah.
And if there's only one source, because they've scrubbed was it Stalin that scrubbed Lenin? I can't remember how that went.
Sure.
They erase from history. If they erase something from history, it's pretty hard to know the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because I saw somebody, did you catch this? Had an argument with Meta's AI, whatever the AI is, about what is a woman. And it started out like, I'm going to teach you about gender ideology, Meta. And the person was like, well, that's circular. And here's why. Can you do it without explaining? And it was like a 20 question thread, it looked like. And they got Meta's AI to come around and be
got it.
Oh, it's an adult human female.
Nice.
And then she was like, well, what's the opposite? What's the man? Like she programmed the thing with logic.
And you can do that.
So we'll see how long it sticks, with Meta. But
you can. Well, and it's only for that person on that session.
Yeah.
So it's not like its brain got rewired. Yeah. It's like every conversation is a new instance of.
Funny though. I found that really funny.
Yeah. I saw Scott Adams do it with OpenAI with ChatGPT. He did it for the election interference. And he asked it, and it gave the leftist line of there was no, and he's like, well, can you say there was none without evidence? And he walked through the whole logic for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And won.
That's interesting. What does that tell you about AI as a thing?
That's interesting. Well, it's kind of like people. Yeah. Right? Yeah. You talk to someone who's been programmed a certain way by public school. And if you can sit down with them and if they're honest, you can start to tease out a subject that they were lied to about. And you can get them. It's okay. Let's go to the original document. Let's go to the original speech by Grover Cleveland.
Right.
You learned this about Grover Cleveland. Nobody ever learned anything about Grover Cleveland. That's why I'm using it.
Yeah.
You learned this about Grover Cleveland, and I propose it's wrong. Let's sit and look at it.
Yeah.
Here's the speech. Well, how do you interpret that speech? And you get it, and you can deprogram someone, right?
Yeah.
So, and they deprogram people who were brainwashed. That happens. That was a big thing in the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
I think Patty Hearst was brainwashed, and there was a whole deprogramming thing.
Well, that's interesting. I have several times. AI is awesome, but it can still be like time consuming. But I've several times have wanted to sit down with our AI and go through like what is the ultimate wedge or defeater thing for basically like social Marxism, and get to the bottom. Like you're talking about the deprogramming, like what's the thing that's like the Achilles heel?
Let's ask it. Shall we?
Yeah.
I would like to defeat social Marxism in 5 sentences. Give me the one thing that you could do, that people could do, that would help end Marxism. That was the worst question ever, but let's see how it does.
A bold goal. To help defeat social Marxism, I'd recommend one crucial action: foster critical thinking and media literacy skills in individuals, especially among the younger generations. This involves encouraging people to question information, evaluate evidence, and identify biases, rather than blindly accepting narratives or ideologies. By doing so, individuals will be better equipped to resist the emotional manipulation and groupthink that often accompany Marxist ideologies. This skill set will empower people to make informed decisions, think independently, and engage in constructive dialogue.
I love you. I love you.
So basically be rational.
Thank you so much for your kind words. As a conversational AI, I don't have personal feelings, but I appreciate the sentiment, and I'm happy to have been able to help and engage with you in a meaningful way.
And our product is the best. ObjectiveReality.ai.
That answer is just what you and I are living.
Yeah, but how? Critical. So that might be the thing.
And the opposite, I assume, is true.
Yeah.
To get it, own the education process.
Right.
And
keep people distracted.
Them. Don't teach them how to evaluate evidence.
Right. Get them hooked on video games. Yeah.
And blindly teach them to blindly accept narratives.
Anything but thought time.
Tucker. I don't know if you saw this, but he's being interviewed by, I don't know who it was, but guy's like, I don't know if we should go here, but what's your thought about the vaccine?
Yeah. Is this the Navy SEAL dude?
Yeah.
Bald guy?
Yeah. And Tucker's like, well, I thought the vaccine was fine. I assumed it had been tested. I'm not a molecular biologist. I assumed the science was good and everything. But one thing, I've spent my entire career knowing if people are lying to me, finding false, from truthful, and they were lying to me. I could tell. I knew they were lying to me just instinctually. I don't know why. Yeah. But so consequently, me nor none of my family members took it.
That's a pretty good Tucker impression. I was like,
yeah. Love Tucker. I've loved him for.
So he and his family didn't take it because he had a gut instinct about that.
That they're lying to me. That they're pushing too hard. They're wrong, and that's kind of. I mean, you can feel that.
So you think that's coming up with this bird flu?
Yeah, they're saying it. They're going to push again. And, you think, well, that's just completely idiotic. But they did it with the Russian disinformation. They did that one twice. Why wouldn't they do this again?
The hubris on something like that. The difference was X wasn't X back then, probably.
Yeah, and they censored a ton of it. Did you see Redfield, the former CDC director, come out in the last couple of days and basically say, yeah, we really screwed that up. There's a lot of dangers and adverse reactions to this vaccine, and we prevented it from being seen.
Oh yeah, but so you know what? Like I'm thinking about people I know, and like so if even the government is admitting some things, like it's for just in general, but the people I know, like the hardest thing in the world is to say I was wrong about something.
Yeah,
and so I think they would rather go to their grave not admitting that, and then like. Dig deeper, like, so that's the problem. That the answer over there was like, be rational, think, like.
I got to imagine that's impossible. I mean, I've never been wrong, so I don't know.
Yeah. Nice.
No, and speak of Tucker, I mean, Tucker is constantly denigrating how he thought.
Yeah.
I believed, he'll say he was just totally wrong. I was absolutely
That's
wrong
something I respect about him.
Yeah.
Because I also, it's pretty new for me to be more conservative, like it's been the last few years, like a process. Because there was a time when I thought he was a weird nut job, I thought all that. Right. And I don't agree with him on everything, but I do like a lot. But that's something I really respect about him is he's like, look, I spent all this time like with Iraq and stuff. I got that totally wrong. You never hear somebody say they're wrong. You never hear that. No. And that is just pure credibility then.
That's pure credibility.
Yeah.
It says something about the inner mind, the inner person. Yeah. They aren't about ego. They aren't about, confirmation bias.
Yes.
They're truth seeker.
Yeah.
And they're finding it.
That's it. See, that's a good thing. Like telling the truth. And he talks about that. But on the other side of telling the truth, like he must have done the math and been like, I could say this and I could apologize. I'm going to be like, hey, I was really wrong in the past. But most people would make the calculation like, no, I'm not going to do that. Right. There's going to be press cycles. But on the other side, it's okay. Yeah. Like it's better. Like, and it's the same thing with like worried about getting canceled. Like
it's funny. It doesn't take much. Like Chris Cuomo, Chris Cuomo, right?
Yes. Did you see that debate with the dude? Did we talk about that?
No.
Okay. Well, after this.
Okay, don't forget. Yeah. But Chris Cuomo has basically come out and said, yeah, there's something wrong with the vaccine.
Yeah.
My blood work shows it. People I know, this is bad.
And now he's on ivermectin.
And he's basically gained a lot of credit. I mean, he's a leftist for sure. I grew up with his father as governor of New York when I lived there. I mean, they're a terrible family, but he's gained some credibility in my mind because he does that. It's like, okay, well, that's a guy at least somewhat open to me. Yeah. Tell me about his debate.
You have to go watch the first, just like the first 40 minutes of the debate. It was with PBD. I don't know if you ever see the PBD podcast. I think that guy is like formerly Iranian. If you haven't seen it,
I know.
Really great show. But so he had on stage him. I forget who the PBD guy is. Him at a desk, and he had Cuomo. And he had Dave Smith, the comedian. I don't really love Smith, but this was like one of the best debates I've ever seen in terms of comeuppance. So they got talking about the vaccine stuff, and he's like, Chris, you sat there on TV and you made fun of like, especially Joe Rogan.
Right.
And he's like, no, I didn't do that. And he was like, yes, you did. And he was telling him, and the big distinction he was making was you were downplaying ivermectin. I've never had ivermectin myself, never took it. I know people that did. But he's like,
it's in my cabinet.
You knew that when you said ivermectin, you were not talking about the vet version. You were just talking about the drug, like the human, and that's how you made it sound. Like it's a horse dewormer. And he's like, no, I didn't. Anyways, he was like, and Cuomo was like, find the clips. And he's like, okay, can somebody find the clips? They found the clips, played it right there. Cuomo's sitting under the screen, like as it's played back. It was brilliant. And he's still, awesome. They were trying to like, do you want to apologize? Like, no, I don't have anything to apologize for. But it was
that's the problem.
It was amazing though. Yeah, that's the thing. I'm not wrong. It was the opposite of Tucker.
If that'd be Tucker, he'd be
I think
I make mistakes.
I think he brought up Tucker. He was like, look, Tucker apologized. Like, can't you just apologize? Like,
did he?
Yeah, but that was it's well worth watching.
That's so nice that we have
find the clips,
some ability to go to the source and deal with it. So ivermectin, by the way, it's pretty interesting. I was watching a cancer doc. Talk about basically ivermectin being, I can't remember her name, but she's like, it was a friend. Stage 4, maybe prostate cancer or whatever. It was like there's nothing else they could do. They sent him for hospice. It was the end. And she's like, yeah, well, maybe try this. I saw some slight evidence that this might work. Boop, fixed. And
I saw some headlines about cancer and that. And I mean, I really know nothing about it.
So I know about it because my daughter has a horse. Oh. And I've paid for ivermectin for 10 years. 10 years. And so I have some, and I had it prepared if it came to it.
Yeah,
but
there is a difference between the animal version, right, and the human.
I don't think so. I mean,
I'm pretty sure
only that the company that makes it,
Merck.
Merck? That they.
Well, you know more about it than I do.
There's more regulation around human products, and packaging and labeling and warnings and all of that. But I was absolutely going to eat that if I needed to. Yeah.
Okay.
Heck yeah. You just look up the dosage. You can figure it out. I mean, if 10 grams isn't going to kill a horse, 1 gram's not going to kill me.
I see.
It's pretty straightforward. It's 1,500 pounds. I'm 150 pounds. Well, I can take 1 gram. That's not.
Well, you were right about keto. Although I saw I wanted to bring this up. Trump is not keto. Did you see they're hauling in all his McDonald's bags?
Yeah, he's a big McDonald's.
It's like 2,500 calories per meal.
Yeah, he's definitely not keto.
I got
Are you still doing keto, by the way?
Yeah. And sometimes I let it go a little too much. On the weekends, in particular, or if we go out to eat with somebody or something like keto.
That's the way I am.
But immediately though, I'm like, I got to get back on because I don't feel good. Yeah.
Do the headaches come back, or you don't do it long enough?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So
cool.
I got 2 things I want to ping real quick before we're out of here. This is just interesting. Did you know that 38% of websites from 2013 are no longer accessible?
And I believe that.
Yeah, it's very believable.
I'm like 32% of it.
Yeah, I know. How many websites have you made? But it's funny because the person that I found that stat from, they were talking about like, hey, you need a better way of like saving information.
You've used the Internet Archive, right? I mean, yes. It's not completely encompassing, but it's decent.
Yes.
It's something. You can go back and see how the Washington Post changed their title from austere scholar.
Yeah, the Wayback Machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's another good use case for our product is like, you can't have a library big enough to fit all the information that you want or want access to.
You can't store the entire internet historically.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, AI, the interesting thing, I think this is really interesting. I was doing some research on the Torah. On the Talmud. And I was just doing it on our product. And I was fascinated so I could ask it questions and interpretation and things like that. Then I'm like, okay, give me the exact quote. And it has it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's storing so infinitely much, and what they're saying is it's like human brains. It's a compression. It's understanding, but that's not. Yeah, it's not a lossy compression in some sense there. So anyway, I find it amazing. So AI helps that.
It is. It can substitute for your library. I feel like we kind of talked about this. Oh, by the way, by the next podcast, or maybe like a couple, I found a new book. I have this list of books that I want to go through, and someone said, like, here's a list of books that C.S. Lewis found interesting that impacted him. And some of them I knew. Fantastes or something like that.
I have that, yeah.
Have you read it? I've not been through it. Is it worthwhile or is it? That's George MacDonald,
It's a fast, easy read. It's fairies and love. But I don't know why he calls that one the most pivotal.
Does he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
it's weird.
He has, because for him, like, he really has this childlike wonder kind of thing. Like, and I think it did add to his views on things. One of them was the constellation of Boethius, which I need to get to. Constellation of Philosophy from Boethius. I need to get to that. It's on my list. Been on my list forever. Fine. Haven't gotten there yet. But this other one I found, I forget the author even. It's called Descent into Hell.
Okay.
So obscure. Never heard about it. Got to like reading about it. And so far I've only gone through the introduction. I got it on Audible. There was like 3 reviews. And I'm reading them. And the reviews are like, this guy might have been like a cracked genius. Like there's like this town that this takes place in. And it's like interdimensional. And people have like doubles. And it gets a little sci-fi. But some of this stuff... it just sounds like it's pretty of great exploration of like our modern day sort of like I some of the things that were in there, I can't even describe it all. It felt like, oh, that's like technology kind of.
Interesting.
And so I'm going to get into that. And I wonder if you might like it too. Descent into Hell.
Descent into Hell is a novel written by Charles Williams, a British author and theologian, first published in 1937.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll look at that.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Let's see. What's the last? Oh, I just want to ask. This came from the Tucker and Eric Prince interview. Did you see any of that? I like Prince.
Yeah, I don't remember.
So he was talking about, and maybe we already talked about this. I don't know. But the drone guys are going to beat the guys with the guns, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that the next Second Amendment realm or issue would be people getting lethal drones, like access to, you know?
Yeah, well, the regulatory states are already doing that. Like, you know, they've really regulated drones.
Yeah.
And I imagine they'll be able to do that more. There's that. We're still waiting, I think, on the Chevron case. I don't remember that. It's the case about deep state regulation.
Yeah.
Having all this power. And so that'll be interesting to see. But
well,
yeah, I mean, this is you need a Supreme Court to interpret these things. Change.
You told me once you had the idea when you were on the sailboat to have like a drone fleet circling around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to sell it to the Navy. I wanted to do it. That was one of my business ideas that I just never, because I lived on a lake. And it's like, okay, I have a field to practice in here. But yeah, I mean, that's absolutely, and they're gonna shrink. They're gonna get down to the size of an insect, and it's going to come stab a poison in you and you're not going to know. I mean, it's a scary.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought because that's what they were talking about. And Prince knows what he's talking about when it comes to military stuff. Like, you know, what's the best defense for that? Well, like a net. Okay, but what if the thing gets like so small that, you know, it's like
and it will.
Then what do you need? Like a local EMP, shut all your machines off and like, you know, I don't know.
You need, you know, I saw a guy with a homebrew project. He had a little, I don't know, it was like a 5-watt laser, basically a gunner turret that took out mosquitoes. Pew, 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 pew. It's like, love that. Love that. And maybe that's what you have, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. It's like, I take this with me and this.
Well, now this, I don't even know. We're like at the end of our time here, but you know, Gates has been experimenting with mosquitoes for like vaccine delivery without, well, I guess whether it's organic or synthetic bugs, you know, like if you have like the drone thing going on, like maybe you get vaccinated and you didn't even want to or mean to, you know?
Yeah. Well, they're the same thing. They're putting it in, they aren't, I wonder if they're doing it. They have the ability to put it in crops.
Oh yeah. In your food. My body, my choice. It doesn't really
unless
mean
it
anything,
applies to anything that they,
Yep.
What do you do?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we better be more positive next time.
Yeah. But people, they like the vibe here. It's the conversation. We're just hanging out.
We're just hanging out.
So it's a good chat.
Well, hopefully you guys can use Objective Reality on your own. Sign up for the wait list.
Yeah.
We're excited to release it. Love the conversational part.
Absolutely.
That's a new edition.
Yes. With all the new features, I get super excited. So can't wait for you to check it out. ObjectiveReality.ai.